It's the beginning of the summer season, and the sun is setting on Little Narragansett Bay in Watch Hill, Rhode Island. The foghorn can be heard in the distance, and most of the beachgoers have packed up for the day. But not everyone leaves the beach at sunset.
We're going to start at this point at this little jetty.
Meet a group of local scientists who are walking Napatree Point with a purpose.
Somebody can even have the other data.
Their headlamps ready and clipboards in hand, they're searching for creatures that are over 300 million years old and living in these waters. Anyone who's spent much time along the Rhode Island coastline is familiar with these guys, horseshoe crabs. They're an ancient creature. Faculty and students at the University of Rhode Island are studying them to better understand how important they are to the ecosystem.
They're called horseshoe crabs because their front of their shell is shaped like a horseshoe. That one's pretty easy to tell. And then underneath they have all these different claws. So they look like crabs even though they're not crabs. They don't have any big crushing claws, just little claws for walking around and kind of putting food in their mouth. They're actually more closely related to scorpions and spiders than they are crabs. For our survey tonight for Project Limulus, we're going to be counting the number of individual males we find. We'll be counting the number of individual females. Females are generally larger than the male horseshoe crabs. And then somebody can even have the other data sheet, which is going to be for looking for recaptured horseshoe crabs because they have these little tags on them, the little white tags that we're going to be looking for.
On this moonlit night in June, this group of scientists, led by naturalist Laura Craver Rogers, is participating in Project Limulus, a community-based study that's run by Sacred Heart University examining horseshoe crabs along Long Island Sound.
So do you want to go on out? So you just want to go out like about 3 meters? Project Limulus gives us all this protocol. So everyone who's doing the data collection for Sacred Heart has the same protocol, so the data is collected the same manner. And so it's always done around the new and full moons. And so what that does is at the new and full moons is the tides are really high, and so that's what the horseshoe crabs are looking for. They want to be able to get up on that beach when the high tide comes up and get in there and be able to nest on good sandy soil so they can dig in really well. And the new and the full moon have multiple high tides, so twice a day you get a high tide, and so twice a day you would be doing your survey. So you'd have a morning survey and an evening survey. Everyone all set? Let's go.
University of Rhode Island professor Pete August says Napatree Point is a key place to survey.
We're here in the middle of the night to do our horseshoe crab surveys. Horseshoe crabs are a very important part of this Napatree ecosystem. Napatree is not only an important bird migrating, bird habitat site in the state, it's nationally recognized as a bird biodiversity hotspot. And for many species of birds, especially shorebirds, horseshoe crab eggs are a very critical food resource for them. So for some species, horseshoe crabs are the base of the food chain. Napatree Point is arguably the most pristine barrier beach in Rhode Island, perhaps southern New England. Everything behaves on Napatree the way a natural ecosystem should. Napatree is managed by the Watch Hill Fire District and the Watch Hill Conservancy, and both groups are very passionate, very committed about using scientific data to guide their management. And so one of the things that they do is monitor horseshoe crabs to know how that part of the ecosystem is working. But a URI alumnus, Brian Oakley, also has a long-term program to study how the dunes are moving in Napatree. Since a hurricane of '38, the whole barrier beach has migrated one beach width into Little Narragansett Bay behind me, and this is a natural process. So the fact that these natural processes can happen here at Napatree without any alteration by man, no bulldozers or that sort of thing, makes this a very, very ecologically important place, and for us at the university, a critically important place because it's a living learning laboratory for our students to come and learn how you carefully steward a very complex ecosystem like Napatree. So the students that were working with us tonight are learning a lot about stewardship and ecological management.
Yeah, got one?
Pretty old and probably a male, right?
All right, so you can pick it up by the front of its shell. This is our first horseshoe crab, and we can see right here, this one is definitely older because he's got a lot of wear and tear on his shell.
Discovering how many horseshoe crabs visit this and other beaches along the Sound is key.
All right. There you go, buddy. The purpose of the survey is a population study. And so what we want to do is we want to figure out how many are coming to different shorelines. And so people are spread out throughout the Long Island Sound, and they're counting horseshoe crabs. You know, there's people out in different areas tonight counting horseshoe crabs. And what we want to know is how many are in pairs, how many are in larger groups, how many are singles. And what that's going to do is that's going to give you all sorts of different population dynamics for data. And then with the tags that we find on these horseshoe crabs, those little white round tags, those numbers will then let Sacred Heart know, like Mark Beakey and Jennifer Matei, they'll be able to figure out with their students when they go back and figure out this data, like, oh, well, this horseshoe crab's been spotted for the past 4 years on that beach. They keep going back. And so we're really getting an understanding of the population dynamics and habitat use of these horseshoe crabs.
The horseshoe crab has survived several mass extinctions, including the most recent ice age. It has not changed its shape over time, which is why they are called living fossils and play an important role in our ecosystem for both wildlife and humans.
These are really important animals, not just because they've been on this planet longer than people, they've lasted longer than dinosaurs, but they are a really important role in our ecosystem. Their eggs, they lay thousands of eggs, and when animals do that, a lot of them are gonna be preyed upon. And so the horseshoe crab eggs are right on the shoreline, and so when the tide goes out at low tide, say, tide now in early morning, there'll be a nice low tide, and then all these shorebirds come out, and they have these long probing beaks, and they have babies, they're nesting, they're trying to raise a family. So, some of the horseshoe crab eggs will be eaten, and they're really giving a lot of nutrients to them, especially for the shorebird, the red knot, which is about robin size, and they migrate from the southern end of South America, and they go all the way up into northern Canada. So that's a long ways, and we're right the midway, and so it's a really good rest stop for them to regenerate any fat they've lost and regain energy. So it's an important food source as well. Oh, so here's an example of a group. So the female is the large one up front, and then we have 1, 2, 3, 4 males.
Horseshoe crabs are used for bait in the eel and conch fishing industry. They're also extremely valuable to the biomedical industry as well.
Horseshoe crabs have some very special blood. They live in the ocean, and there's all sorts of sometimes different things in there, and bacteria sometimes where they live. They live in the muddy bottoms, and so their blue blood has some really neat properties. So their blood is blue because there's copper in it, and that blue blood has some really neat features in that it has a way to clot around any infections. And so their blue blood is sought after by the medical industry now too. And when people discovered this back in the 60s, they were like, oh wow, this is a really neat way to test our products like our intravenous drugs, and if someone's getting some kind of implant, even your pets when they get a rabies vaccine. And what it does is it allows them to test these injectable medicines for any kinds of bacteria that might be present that would get people sick, something like E. coli. And that way, anytime you go and get, anything done with your blood or in a hospital with an IV, you can thank horseshoe crabs that you're not getting sick afterwards. I'm going to start with one tag, and you can see here it has the website on it. I'm going to go right in.
The survey process has a familiar rhythm each time the scientists head out that includes identifying and tagging the horseshoe crabs so they can be tracked over time.
So the first one should be 347026.
347026.
Okay.
So what do we got here? This looks like a crab that's already been tagged.
Yep, so this is one that was tagged in a previous year. These are tags that are distributed, and so each tag has its own individual number, kind of like a barcode to recognize your crab. And so that way, if it's respotted, that number can be recorded along with other morphological information. But what this tells them is they'll know from previous data where this one was tagged, what year it was tagged, and that's going to give information on their distribution, where they're coming and going, and maybe even age information, determining how long they're living. Because right now we know they can live over 20 years, but maybe it's, maybe there's a little more to that.
Is it likely that this guy was tagged right here somewhere nearby, or do they travel long distances?
It's possible he was tagged here. There is another group just over the line in Connecticut that does tagging as well, so it could have been one of theirs. I'm not sure how far their distance is that they'll travel, but, having that information from this tag number, and, there's a good chance that it came back here.
So if that's the case, that it's returning to the same place it started, is that a good thing? What does that mean?
It means they keep reusing a habitat, so Napattree Point would be an important conservation area for horseshoe crabs. Good find, Morgan.
University of Rhode Island graduate student Morgan Devlin and URI Coastal Fellow Jasper Romero are utilizing Napattree as an outdoor classroom.
I'm out late picking up horseshoe crabs out of the water. I'm spending the night on the beach. I'm learning things about them that I had never known before, so that's pretty cool. And everybody I've met is pretty friendly, so it's really a win-win. Nice people, nice setting, and I get to learn things, get to spend time looking at little aquatic critters.
The crew is out at Napattree just over 4 hours and is done with their work after midnight.
Another pair right here. Mid-June, great time to come out for horseshoe crabs. The water's at a nice 65 degrees. We're getting lots of horseshoe crabs. I'd say we're probably going to get somewhere around 200 pairs easily tonight. So it's definitely been a pretty good night. So we know that horseshoe crabs still really like to use Napattree Point Conservation Area. They always seem to come back, and we just keep noticing year after year that June's a really busy month for horseshoe crabs.
During the next moon phase, these URI scientists and others will comb the beach again tagging horseshoe crabs, and in August will categorize and send their data to Project Limulus for processing.
This data, once we collect all of it, what we're going to do is we turn it into Sacred Heart, and so we'll turn it in throughout the season, and then we'll give them our final data, usually in August. We submit all the data to them. They process it. They have students that are helping them, so that's why they like it by the end of the summer, and they figure it out. They all put it into their database, and they'll start, they look for trends, and they see what's going on. So yeah, it's really neat. It's fun.
For URI Today, I'm science writer Todd McLeish.
There he goes. Bye, buddy.